So language diversity and ELL/ESOL. First of all, we need to talk about what does ELL stand for. It stands for English Language Learners. Sometimes you might see ESL, and that stands for English as a Second Language. So with that being said, all educators must view themselves as language teachers. They should be able to communicate with their students no matter what their native language. As teachers, we need to be able to communicate with our students the way they learn best. So as we're teaching them English, we need to be able to speak with them no matter what subject you teach on their level. Okay, so tips for teaching English as a second language students is to first make sure that you know your students. You need to increase your understanding of who your students are. You need to know their backgrounds. You need to know their educational experiences. Be aware of their social and emotional needs. Understanding more about the students and their families will help you relate to the students. It will help you understand them so that you can support them. The second thing is that you need to increase your understanding of first and second languages acquisition. If you as the teacher are able to understand the theories about language acquisition and the variables that contribute to language learning, you're going to be able to help your ESL and ELL students more effectively. You need to make sure that you are understanding their native language. Having social language proficiency and academic English language proficiency are very different. We need to not harp on being sure that they're using proper English, but yet that they're understandable. You also need to know the language of your content. Be sure that when you are introducing new words to your English as a second language students, that they're aware that there could be multiple meanings associated with different words. This may not be apparent to them. Our next picture, I chose a graphic, and this focuses on comprehensible input. When you're speaking with the students, you need to make sure that the language that you're using is not too challenging. You want it to make sure it's just above their language proficiency so that you're pushing them, but it's not so far that they don't understand what you're saying. With that being said, we also need to make sure that the students are speaking, writing, reading, and listening every day. This needs to be included in all of the assignments because the best way for them to learn the language is to interact with the language by speaking, writing, reading, and listening at their level. This fourth picture we have is to be sure as the teacher that you determine the key concepts, define the language and content objectives for each lesson. This is something that a teacher should be doing no matter what, no matter the diversity of their classroom. But with an English as a second language student, it's more important to make sure that you set the language objectives for the ELL students. The language objective might be new vocabulary, find the nouns in a lesson, or apply a grammar rule, but you need to make sure that that language objective is there in your subject to help increase their understanding. We have modified vocabulary testing and homework. What we're getting at here is to make sure that you are introducing the new vocabulary to your ELL students. They need more practice pronouncing new words, idioms, phrases than regular English speaking students. It needs to be a part of the lesson and it needs to be reinforced continually. Knowing the level of your English language proficiency for your students is vital in order to scaffold them appropriately, to differentiate the assignments for them. Their homework should be at their level so that they can practice and improve. Knowing which differentiations are most appropriate takes time, but will support the language learning more effectively. The next picture we have here is cooperative learning. It shows multiple students coming together and working together to put the puzzle pieces together. I use this to show that working in small groups is especially beneficial for ELLs who have an authentic reason to use academic vocabulary and real reasons to discuss key concepts. ELLs benefit from cooperative learning structures. It gives them a job in a group and they're able to monitor what they are participating. They feel successful. And last but not least on this slide, we have collaborate to celebrate. Seek support from your other teachers to teach your English as a second language students. Other teachers may be able to give suggestions or resources that could support you, and also create an environment where students are excited to be learning the language together and making improvements. Some benefits of technology in the classroom are that computers can enhance the listening skills, verbal interactions, and support a variety of language functions. On top of this, they're able to individualize the assignments more easily, and they promote the cooperative group work to work together. Along with learning their language, they are also learning the essential 21st century skills that they need to be productive in our society. They can increase their percentage of time students stay on task practicing their skills. While I was doing my student teaching a couple of years ago, we had two students from Vietnam come to our classroom, and I was teaching math, and we were doing pre-algebra functions. Basically, they were using shapes and a balance beam to represent equations. And what the students had to do, they went up to the smartboard and they moved the shapes around to different sides of the balance beam to get them to equal based off of the equation, and different shapes represented different numbers. Our Vietnamese students who did not speak any English, they had translators with them that they could type in the Vietnamese phrase and it would output the English phrase with them. But they didn't talk very much. But it was the third day that they were at school and they were in the math class with me, and the students were raising their hands and going up to the board and grabbing the shapes and moving them to the balance beam to see how it worked. And one of the Vietnamese students walked up. He didn't get the whole concept of raising your hand and being called on, but that was fine. He walked up to the board and he grabbed the shapes and started solving the equation. It's just one of those ways to show you that visual learning is easier to understand for them. And also with math, after looking at some of his assignments that we were working on, they were actually ahead of a lot of the students in the class with math, because math is more of a universal language. Numbers look very similar no matter what language you're speaking. So I thought that was a very cool experience, that they may not understand what you're saying, but they understand numbers and they understand visuals. And just from watching the other students, he understood how to operate the smartboard by taking the pen from one of the students and clicking on the shape and dragging it down. Some challenges for ELL teachers with technologies could be that one, there is the language barrier. They might not understand what you're trying to tell them, so it's very important to have those step-by-step visuals with screenshots of what they need to be doing. But they might also have limited access to the computer or internet. I know that several school districts have started 24-hour computer labs that the community can come into and work on or use the computers. That's definitely a step in the right direction, but it may not be feasible for all of your students to make that happen. Another challenge may be that there's different levels of experience with technology. One of your students may have been using technology since they were a toddler, and another student may have never used technology. So not only do you have the language barrier, but they have insufficient technology skills as well. So they need to work together. And again, just really using those visuals will really help our ESL students get up to speed with the newest technology. The school infrastructure of where you're at, the equipment and resources that they're able to provide could hinder some of your teaching with your ELL students as well. If you don't have the most up-to-date resources or that many resources, it may slow down the process. And also keeping up. I mean, technology changes so quickly that you may teach them one method or show them one tool to use, and it may completely change the next week or next year. So that's also another challenge, is keeping up with the most up-to-date technology in the classroom. What you're using in your classroom right now may not be what they're going to be using in the real world here in a couple of years. It could be completely different. It's important for them to build toward career readiness, that they're able to operate smoothly in technological environments and to learn new technology quickly. Next, we have a picture showing what a classroom could be like. Okay, so after that, you draft the first paragraph of your analysis, and blah, 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 is sometimes what they hear. So it's just kind of really focusing on, just because you're talking up there and you might be explaining it very well, very explicit, if they can't understand you, or if you don't talk slow enough, or they don't know a word that you're using, one tiny little thing that they might not understand, their brain could get sidetracked trying to figure that out or trying to keep up with you, and then they're completely lost, just in an instance. So it really is important to make sure that you are giving them step-by-step directions, using visuals, and making sure that you're giving them time to reinforce everything that they're learning. They need to practice their skills. They need to practice our language. And this is what I've learned about ESL. Thank you.